$243,000, $200,000, even $142,000 plus? Those are massive numbers for quarters that can look completely ordinary. But the real secret could be hiding in the metal, the edge, the strike, or one tiny production mistake. Let's inspect all three before you spend another quarter.
Long before America started putting individual states on quarters, one Washington quarter broke the rules and replaced the familiar eagle with something Americans had never seen in their pocket change before. Turn over a 1776 to 1976 Bicentennial Quarter, and there he is, a colonial drummer standing beside a victory torch, surrounded by 13 stars. That reverse is more than decoration. It was created specifically for America's 200th anniversary, and designer Jack R's drummer was selected through a national competition. The quarter entered circulation in 1975, but here is the first detail that surprises many collectors. You will not find a Washington quarter dated simply 1975. Instead, bicentennial quarters made during this special production period carried the dual date 1776 to 1976. That alone makes the coin easy to recognize. But easy to recognize does not mean easy to understand. Look closely at Washington's side first. If there is no mint mark, the quarter was struck at Philadelphia. A D means Denver. An S points toward San Francisco, where the story can become especially interesting because both clad proofs and special 40% silver bicentennial quarters were produced. So before searching for an error, identify exactly which version you have. Now rotate the coin and study the edge. On a normal copper nickel-clad circulation quarter, you will usually see the familiar copper-colored core between lighter outer layers. Standard clad pieces weigh about 5.67 grams and measure roughly 24.3 millimeters across. But some San Francisco bicentennial quarters were struck in 40% silver. Those silver versions weigh approximately 5.75 grams. That difference is small enough that guessing by hand is almost useless, but large enough that a precise scale can become part of the investigation. And this is where people sometimes make a costly mistake. They see 1776 to 1976, assume every bicentennial quarter is rare, and immediately start attaching huge values to it. In reality, more than 1.6 billion bicentennial quarters were produced for circulation. Most ordinary worn examples are still common. The special date is historic. The drummer design is collectible, but neither one automatically creates a fortune. So where does the serious collector hunt begin? At the places where one coin stops matching the other billion. Take a careful look at the drummer. Study his face. Follow the drumsticks. Examine the drum itself. Then move toward the torch and the ring of 13 stars. The design has several small areas where circulation damage, weak striking, die deterioration, and genuine mint-made abnormalities can look confusingly similar. A random hit across the drum is not automatically an error. A flattened star does not automatically mean a rare die variety. The question is whether the unusual feature could have been created while the coin was being struck. Now return to the obverse and examine the letters and date. Some bicentennial quarters are known with genuine doubled die varieties. On a real doubled die, the doubling should follow a repeatable pattern because the abnormality came from the die itself. That is completely different from a scrape or flattened mechanical doubling that affects one random section of the coin. But there is an even more dramatic path. Wrong planchets. Imagine quarter dies coming together normally, but instead of a quarter blank between them, a much smaller cent planchet is sitting inside the press. Now the quarter design has nowhere near enough metal to fit. Parts disappear beyond the edge. The color looks wrong. The weight changes dramatically, and the result can be unmistakable. A certified 1976D bicentennial quarter struck on a cent planchet weighed only about 3 grams. Large portions of Liberty and quarter dollar were missing because the cent-sized blank was too small to receive the complete quarter design. That genuine error sold at auction for $4,465. Notice what that teaches us. A spectacular error can be worth thousands. But spectacular does not automatically mean hundreds of thousands. Condition can create another surprise. A normal 1976 D-clad quarter graded MS-68 has reached $6,463 at auction. and an exceptionally preserved 1976 40% silver quarter, graded MS-69, reached an even more impressive $19,200. That coin did not need a giant off-center strike. Its rarity came from surviving at an extraordinary grade. So if you are holding one of these bicentennial quarters right now, build the case in layers. First, identify the mint mark. Then check the edge. If the coin appears unusual, verify the weight. Look at the dual date. Inspect Washington. Turn to the drummer. Study the stars and torch. Then ask whether the surfaces simply show age, or whether something about the strike, metal, planchet, or design genuinely does not belong. Now we reach the figure connected with this coin. $243,000 plus. Could an ordinary 1776 to 1976 quarter from a change jar be worth $243,000 simply because it has the drummer reverse? No. Even verified elite grade and dramatic error examples have documented auction results far below that amount. For one specific bicentennial quarter to enter a value conversation around $243,000 or more, it would need something truly extraordinary behind it. An exceptionally rare, authenticated mint error, a unique wrong planchet or multiple error combination, extreme top pop preservation with extraordinary demand, remarkable provenance, or another documented discovery that places the coin in a completely different category. And that is what makes the bicentennial quarter such a perfect first coin for this three-coin hunt. Millions of people recognize it. Millions saved one. But collectors are not searching for just another drummer quarter. They are searching for the one that tells a second story, the story of something unusual happening before that coin ever left the mint. And the next quarter in this video will make us look for that difference in an entirely different way.
A 1965 quarter should not be silver. And that single fact is exactly why one unusual 1965 Washington quarter can stop an experienced collector in their tracks. This is the second coin in our three-quarter hunt. And unlike the bicentennial quarter we just examined, the most important clue here may not be visible on the design at all. It may be hiding inside the metal. The year 1965 marked one of the biggest changes in modern U.S. coinage. For decades, Washington quarters have been struck in 90% silver. But rising silver demand and coin shortages forced the United States to make a major change. The Coinage Act of 1965 authorized new clad quarters with copper-nickel outer layers bonded to a pure copper center. So take your 1965 quarter and turn it sideways. Look at the edge first. On a normal example, you should usually see that familiar copper-colored stripe running between the lighter outer layers. That stripe is one of the quickest visual clues that you are holding the standard clad version. But now imagine finding a 1965 quarter whose edge looks almost completely silver. No obvious copper center. Suddenly, this very common date becomes a much more serious investigation. Before we get there, look at the obverse. George Washington appears exactly where you expect him. The date reads 1965, but something else is missing. There's no mint mark. And on this coin, that is completely normal. During the transition period, the mint temporarily removed mint marks from circulating coins in an effort to discourage collecting and help increase coin production. So a missing mint mark on a 1965 quarter is not an error and should not be treated like one. That mistake alone causes a lot of confusion online. Now, take a closer look at the physical coin. A standard clad 1965 quarter weighs about 5.67 grams and measures roughly 24.3 millimeters across. More than 1.8 billion were produced, making the ordinary issue extremely common overall. That huge production number should tell you exactly how to approach this coin. The date is not the rarity. The absence of a mint mark is not the rarity. The individual coin has to give you another reason to care. And here is where the 1965 quarter becomes fascinating. During the transition from silver quarters to clad quarters, 1964 dated silver coins and 1965 dated clad coins were being produced during overlapping periods. That created an opportunity for something that was never supposed to happen. An old 90% silver quarter planchet could remain in the production system and eventually reach dies carrying the new 1965 date. The result? A genuine 1965 Washington quarter struck on a silver planchet. This is not a theory. Authenticated examples exist. Heritage Auctions sold a PCGS-certified 1965 quarter struck on a 90% silver quarter planchet for $9,300 in July 2022. Heritage described it as a rare, transitional planchet error created when a leftover silver blank apparently became mixed with clad planchets intended for 1965 dated dies. Now imagine finding one without knowing what to check. At first glance, it still says 1965. Washington still looks normal. The eagle still appears on the reverse. But the metal underneath the design is wrong. That is why the edge becomes so important. Then comes the scale. A normal clad quarter should be around 5.67 grams. The earlier 90% silver quarter standard is heavier, approximately 6.25 grams. If your 1965 quarter has a silvery edge and weighs noticeably closer to the old silver specification, you now have two clues pointing in the same direction. That still does not mean you should declare the coin rare immediately. Authentication matters. Plating, alteration, environmental effects, and damaged surfaces can create misleading appearances. But when color, edge, weight, and metal composition begin agreeing with one another, the investigation becomes much stronger. Now flip the quarter over. The reverse still carries the classic eagle design. Study the breast feathers. Look across the wings. Then examine the lettering and rim. This is where collectors pay attention to another kind of rarity, condition. Despite the enormous mintage, superbly preserved 1965 quarters become much harder at the highest grades. A regular 1965 quarter has recorded an auction price of $12,650 in PCGS auction data, and Heritage has offered MS-68 examples described as top-level registry coins. So there are two very different roads to collector value here. One is extraordinary preservation. The other is a genuine manufacturing mistake. And the silver planchet error is where history and accident collide. Now we reach the much larger figure connected with this coin, $200,000 plus. Could a normal 1965 clad quarter from pocket change automatically be worth $200,000? No. Even verified silver planchet errors and elite normal examples have documented auction results far below that level. For a particular 1965 Washington quarter to enter a value conversation around $200,000 or more, it would need something truly exceptional, perhaps an extraordinarily rare authenticated transitional error, a unique combination of planchet and striking abnormalities, extreme condition rarity, remarkable provenance, or another documented characteristic powerful enough to separate that specimen from more than 1 billion ordinary quarters. So when you find a 1965 quarter, do not begin with the price. Begin with the edge, then the weight, then the surfaces. Confirm that the missing mint mark is normal. And if that copper stripe is missing when it should be there, that is when the real investigation begins. Because the most interesting 1965 quarter is not valuable simply because it survived the transition from silver to clad. It may be valuable because somehow the transition missed that coin completely. And our third quarter will hide its collector story somewhere entirely different. The 1989 P. Washington quarter is the kind of coin people ignore precisely because it looks too ordinary. And that may be the biggest mistake. This is the third and final coin in our 3-quarter hunt. And unlike the 1776 to 1976 Bicentennial Quarter or the 1965 silver transition issue, the 1989 P does not arrive with an obvious historical headline. No special reverse. No missing silver story. No anniversary design. Just a normal-looking Washington quarter with a small P mint mark. But that is exactly what makes this coin dangerous to overlook. Philadelphia struck hundreds of millions of quarters in 1989, so the normal coin is common. A regular 1989 P quarter weighs about 5.67 grams. measures roughly 24.3 millimeters across, has a reeded edge, and uses the standard copper-nickel-clad composition over copper core. So the date is not the rarity. The P-Mint mark is not the rarity. The real question is whether one individual coin somehow escaped the problems that affected millions of others, or whether something unusual happened while it was being struck. Start with Washington's portrait. Do not look at the date first. Look at the cheek, then the jaw, then the open field in front of the face. These are the areas where contact marks become obvious. A coin can be technically uncirculated and still look beaten up from contact with other quarters during production, bagging, transport, and handling. That matters because condition rarity is one of the biggest stories on modern Washington quarters. Now tilt the coin slowly under a single light. Watch how the luster moves. If the surface looks dull, broken, or heavily marked, the coin may be ordinary. But if the fields are unusually clean, the strike is sharp, and the original luster flows smoothly across the surface, now the coin begins moving into a completely different category. This is where collectors pay attention. On a common date, grade becomes the filter. Millions may exist. Only a small fraction survive at elite levels. Now move down to the mint mark. The P identifies Philadelphia. By this point in the series, mint marks were a normal part of the design process, so the letter itself does not create rarity. What you want to inspect is the surrounding area. Does the strike look normal? Is there displacement? Is the mint mark unusually shaped because of damage, die wear, or another cause? Do not assume every strange-looking P is an error. That is one of the easiest mistakes to make. Now turn the quarter sideways. The copper-colored band along the edge should normally be visible because of the clad construction. If the edge looks dramatically different, that is where the scale becomes important. A normal 1989 P quarter should be close to 5.67 grams. If the weight is far outside that range, then the investigation changes. Could the coin have been struck on the wrong planchet? Could it be missing part of its clad layer? Could the blank have been abnormal before striking? One clue is interesting. Several clues pointing in the same direction are much stronger. Now flip the coin over. The classic eagle reverse still appears here, just as it did on Washington quarters before the state quarters program began years later. Study the eagle's breast, then the wings, then the arrows, then the open fields around the design. This is where a weak strike can reveal itself. If the center looks mushy or incomplete, while the outer design appears stronger, that may be normal strike weakness rather than wear. The distinction matters. Wear happens after the coin enters circulation. Weak strike begins at the mint. Now look at the rim. Is the design centered? Does the border remain even? A genuine off-center strike should leave a visible area of unstruck planchet and shift the design away from its normal position. That kind of error is very different from a coin that has simply been damaged or bent later. Multiple strikes can also create duplicated design elements in positions that make mechanical sense. Wrong planchet errors can produce unusual weight, diameter, color, and incomplete design. Again, the strongest errors explain themselves through multiple physical clues. Now consider normal value. A typical circulated 1989 P quarter is common and usually worth only face value or a small collector premium, depending on condition. Even many uncirculated pieces remain affordable. The serious market interest begins when the coin reaches unusually high certified grades or when a genuine authenticated mint error is involved. And this is where the 1989 P becomes more interesting than its mintage suggests. Modern quarters are deceptively hard at the very top. A common date coin can still become scarce if almost no examples survive with exceptional surfaces, strong strike, and minimal marks. That is condition rarity. The coin did not become rare because fewer were made. It became rare because fewer survived at that level. Now we reach the supplied figure connected with this final coin. $142,000 plus. Could an ordinary 1989 P Washington quarter from pocket change automatically be worth $142,000? No. That would be completely unrealistic for a normal example. Even a superb, high-grade regular strike would need extraordinary certification and market demand to reach serious premium levels, and most normal examples remain far below that figure. For one specific 1989P to enter a value conversation around $142,000 or more, something exceptional would need to separate it from the normal population. Perhaps a major authenticated wrong planchet error, a dramatic multi-strike, an extremely rare production abnormality, a unique combination of errors, extreme top pop condition, remarkable provenance, or another documented characteristic that creates intense collector competition. And that brings this three-coin hunt to its real lesson. The 1776 to 1976 quarter made us look at a special design and unusual planchets. The 1965 quarter forced us to question the metal itself. And the 1989 P teaches a completely different rule. Common does not mean identical. Two quarters can share the same date, the same mint mark, the same design, the same official specifications, and still belong in completely different collector worlds. So when you inspect a 1989 P, do not ask only, is this date rare? Ask something better. How clean are the surfaces? How strong is the strike? Does the edge look normal? Does the weight match? Is the design centered? Do any unusual features make sense as part of the minting process? Because the most valuable quarters are not created by a viral price tag. They are created by evidence. And that is the clue every serious collector should remember when the next quarter lands in their hand.